So in this video, we're going to look at how to draw anything with 8 easy beginner tips. So to really simplify down the drawing process, we have our eyes that see something. It gets processed in our brains and then we sketch it with our hands. So there is a clear sort of flow really. So that's why I want to start these tips with point number 1, and that's really looking. So when we start to really look at a subject we want to draw, what we're going to see is it's easy to just refine those things down to simple shapes. You know, a tree might be easy to draw as a circle, or a person might be easy to draw as a sort of carrot shape. So a house can be within a square, or if you want to be a bit more accurate, it could be a square with a triangle on top. And that's really looking and seeing, and I think seeing for any artist is really important. So let's do something a bit more practical. So number 2, let's draw some shapes. You know, it's very easy to see the whole world as a series of shapes. You know, if you're doing some simple sketching out there, you've got boats that are triangles, houses that are squares with triangles on top, people's faces that are oval. You know, that you start to actually look at a scene and instinctively break it down into those components. So to train our brains to think about shapes and to draw shapes, we're going to do this really simple shape exercise. Now this is a cracker. So what you do is you do 3 big squares on your page, and in one square you do circles. And in another square you do polygons, and in the third one you do a simple silhouette. Now that could be of a tree or a house or something, but just one single line, but really think about where that line's going. So what we're doing is we're starting to look at how our brain deals with the shapes that we see with our eyes, but this bit is all about that hand exercise. When you start to think about drawing and you start to think about really simple scenes, you'll see that within those scenes we have some really, really simple forms. If you look at this scene here, we've got trees that are circles, we've got a road in the middle that's a triangle, we've got a house at one side which is quite a simple sort of polygon shape with squares and a triangle on it. And yes, there is the perception of perspective in it, but there isn't any perspective in it. It's a drawing, it's flat. But it is really, that landscape has been simplified down into those really simple shapes. So number 3 is all about the silhouette. There's a really fun drawing exercise that I've done in the past that really works for this, and what you have to do is get 5 or 6 items from your house and hold them up to a window and really look at their silhouette and then draw it out. And you'll see here this is exactly what I'm doing, and I'm keeping a continuous line method going between them. So from the start of the drawing to the end, I want to keep that pen stuck on the page, and it'll give you this really interesting single page of these different objects. So have a go at that. So number 4 is the brain mistakes and kind of getting loose. It's really important to get loose and to start being more gestural with your mark making. So in this exercise, I want you to get a face, a human face, and I want you just to start making marks and keep going and going and going and going and just go crazy and just put marks everywhere. It's a wonderful feeling. If you're not used to being this free, you realize that you can actually put marks anywhere on the page. And once you put it all out and there's a big mess and it's vaguely human shaped, and think about the chin and think about the nose and scratching a little bit of shadow on one side, then you can start picking out those features and actually sort of refining it down a little bit. Give yourself 10 minutes and try and develop that looseness for sketching and drawing, because that will really help you. 10-minute sessions are perfect, and make sure you do the 10 minutes, and even if you finished halfway through, just overwork it, because then you'll understand the difference between underworking and overworking something. So get loose, get free with your mark making. It'll really help you, and it'll help you really develop your style going forward. So number 5 is don't take on too much. One of the easiest ways to lose your confidence and to sort of lose your motivation when it comes to learning any skill, whether it's playing the trumpet or, you know, learning to cook or anything, is that you go too far too soon and then you realize you can't do it, and it can be really demoralizing. So keep it really simple. When it comes to drawing something, find something around you that you understand, something that you really understand the shape of, because it makes it much easier. You know, do as I've said before, you can either do a silhouette technique or a continuous line, make a big liney mess, or put it within a box and construct it within a box. Something like a pair of glasses is a really simple one. And that will give you confidence. So keeping it simple will not only give you a little bit more satisfaction, it's less scary, but it actually means you can learn quicker too. So number 6 is find time and commit to it. Unless you actually schedule it in, it's easy to let things slip. It's one of the reasons why doctor's appointments and things like that are really good, because you put them in the diary and then you stick to them. So if you can find time and commit to it once a day or a couple of times a week, whether it's on a lunch hour, why not do a little bit of sketching on the company dime, or whether it's on an evening, if you want to be spending a little bit less time sitting in front of the telly, or on social media, or even a coffee in the morning or on the way to work. There's always little times when you can, get a little 10-minute sketching session in. We've started something in the new year that we call Loodling, and I've got a little sketch pad by the toilet, and anyone in the family, while they're enjoying their easement, can just do a little sketch in there, which is a bit of a weird idea, and it's not for everyone, but it's just an experiment to see how much the kids get involved with it. Yeah, it's just a fun little idea. So mostly there's always time in your day to get a little bit of 10-minute sketching, even if it's sitting in bed before you go to sleep. So number 7 is understanding ratios. Now, you've maybe seen the stereotypical artist, doing some drawing, and they've got the tongue out here, and they're looking, and they're doing this, like full pencil, half pencil, tiny bit of pencil. And what they're doing is they're looking at ratios. They're looking at the relationship of objects within that scene. Now, if you look at a simple house that you're drawing, and you look at how that actually breaks down in terms of ratio. So I'm going to do a simple drawing here of a house, and I'm going to break that down in terms of what ratios I see. Is the roof a quarter of the overall building? Is the front door halfway across? Is it in the center, or is it a quarter of the way across? When you look at drawing human faces, there are pretty tightly fixed ratios. Obviously they vary slightly from person to person, but people's eyes are in a certain position to the bottom of their nose and their lips, and you can learn those ratios, and they can really help you draw. So understanding ratios is a really important way of understanding a scene, because it means you can start to really understand the relationships between objects. So finally, number 8, and I like to call this little technique join the dots. And this is a sort of combination really of a silhouette method as well as looking at ratios. But it's a way of constructing a simple drawing on the page without doing a huge amount of marks. Now, I know I've talked in previous tips about doing loads and loads of marks and keeping it really loose. Once you build up a little bit of confidence, and you don't necessarily want to go down that route, if you wanted to do a very, very simplified drawing, you can use the dot method very effectively for this. Got this coffee pot here, and I'm going to start looking at the ratios of, what's the size, the height of it to its width, and get that in my head, and then we start adding those things down on the paper. And you can also use this method for really simply doing faces. If you're doing a simple portrait of a face and you want to lay out, where the eyes are, you can roughly say that the eyes are so far apart, and if you split that line into thirds, that will give you the space between the eyes and the width of both eyes. And once you start understanding that you can approach portraits in terms of those ratios, it can be really useful, but that's obviously a whole other video that will come at some point. So there we have 8 points there. I mean, some of them are obviously very practical. This is a way you could start drawing this, or this is where you can start drawing this. And some of them are a little bit more cerebral. But as I said to you before, the process of drawing and sketching is very much about observation, about your brain processing. And it's about, teaching you to develop certain skills with your hands. It's the same as playing the piano in a sense. Because you're developing techniques for actually physically mark making. So yeah, if you want to understand a little bit more about urban sketching, or you want to learn to draw with a fountain pen, or you want to learn to draw, a scene of a house and see the whole process from start to finish with a reference drawing that you can download, there's loads on my channel, do check that out. And there's always my Patreon for longer and more detailed videos there as well. It's all in the description above, below, somewhere over there. So yeah, hope you enjoyed that. We'll see you next time. Bye bye.